sign?
Hey, congratulations.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you.
gavel so they all go to their seats.
We're going to call the meeting from Akron City Council to order. Clerk will read the roll.
Freeman, Fusco, Hope, Kamer, Keith, Kilby, Milkovich, Neal, Amobian, Sample, Sims, Somerville, Swirsky.
For those who voluntarily wish to do so, would you please stand as we are led in prayer by Pastor Mark Ford from Love Akron. Immediately following our prayer, we'll be led in the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to ask if Councilman Sims would be so kind to do that for us.
Madam President, if I might just say before I pray, Saturday was an example of how classy this city is. I was at 7 o'clock ready when the gun went off for the marathon. Our mayor was there, spoke high for the city. Eileen Shapiro did a great job, and I just want to say thank you for making this city work. This council and this mayor and his team makes us proud, and I just want to say thank you. Let's thank God. Our Father, we come to you in the powerful name that is above all name. Thank you because you love us, even when we were not lovely. You loved us. We love you, and we want you to know that we're glad to call you our Father. We also want to tell you thank you for bringing us to this great city, this city that is set on a hill, a summit that the world sees and admires for all that we've done in our history and what we're doing today. And we look forward to a greater tomorrow. We thank you, Lord, for the servants of this city, for this great council that is working together to make us all proud. I pray that you would give them grace and wisdom and strength. And Lord, I pray for our nation at this time that's the divided states of America. I pray that you would unite our hearts. Come, I pray, heal our land. Knit our hearts together. Bring us to peace, we pray. And we will give you the praise and the glory. Amen.
Amen.
Clerk will read the minutes from our previously held meeting.
Minutes from last week's meeting, September 24th, 2018. Council convened a regular session at 7 p.m. with President Somerville in the chair. All members were present except Fusco, later excused. Minutes of the previous regular meeting were approved. Reading of petitions and communications, passage of the consent agenda, report of standing and special committees, passage and referral of new ordinances and resolution, representation from various departments and divisions, public speaking period. No further business on a motion by Swirsky. Council adjourned at 8:15 p.m. to reconvene in regular session on October 1st, 2018, or special call.
Any corrections or additions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Letters, petitions, and communications.
Notice of a transfer of a D1, D2, D3, D3A liquor permit to Cheap Guitars LLC, 561 South Cyberlink Street.
Special attention, Councilman Milkovich.
Notice of a liquor agency contract to Fred W. Albrecht Grocery Company, doing business as RSVP Food and Party Outlet, 1525 South Hawkins.
Special attention, Councilperson Somerville.
Notice of a new C2 liquor permit to Dollars Plus and More, LLC at 1465 Astor Avenue.
Special attention, Councilman Kamer.
Correspondence from Joseph Cole regarding animal.
File.
Correspondence regarding the barking dog ordinance.
File.
Correspondence from Cascade Locks Park Association thanking the City of Akron.
File.
Notice of a new D3 liquor permit to Jar Wines Incorporated at 2287 West Market Street.
Special attention, Councilman Keith. You have before you the consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Before we move into our public hearings for this evening, we do have a special guest here with us, Terry Cherry, who is the past president of the National Church of Social Studies from Ohio, and is here today for First Peoples Day.
Thank you. Yes, I grew up in Northwest Ohio, a little town called Pandora between Finn and Lima, if anyone knows where that is. And for years and years and years, I proudly carry a Buckeye, even though I live in Texas for the last 35 years. Last February, I had the privilege of visiting Lippman School and finding out what they were doing relating to First Peoples March. And they told me that the council had approved the action to have October 1st as a special day, and I asked specifically if I could come and be a part of it. I had no idea I would be speaking to the city council, but I appreciate the opportunity to do so. The National Council for Social Studies approved in November 2016 a strategic plan including collaboration, communication, innovation, inclusiveness, influence, and leadership. And these 5 strategic plans were an example and proven and followed through during this First Peoples March. In order for the First Peoples Day to happen, education and students had to start working together. Educators did. That means students had to cooperate with their teachers, and teachers had to listen to students. This project enabled students to know they can make a difference. Working with their teachers and having the support of the Lippman School Administration, students understand that collaboration is important, more important than only doing activities that says my way or no way, which we have an example to our capital east of us. The second priority is communication. From my understanding, there were various groups of people who communicated to make this day happen, exchanging ideas, thoughts, and desires with adults and students in preparing students for understanding the importance of making yourself heard clearly. The third strategic plan is innovation. NCSS responds to challenge and changing needs through innovative practices. The challenge was convincing the community the importance of such an event. The students were not discouraged with their first rejection. Most students would have given up and said, I don't understand adults, and then go home. This group kept asking questions why. They responded to the challenge. They came up with innovative ways, making changes, listening to others, and learning the political process. You cannot prepare students for civic life better than this. The fourth strategic plan is inclusiveness. I don't know if Hillary Clinton coined the phrase, it takes a village, but she did make it famous with her book. And inclusiveness does take a village. The Lippman School, the Northern Cheyenne Nation of Montana, teachers, students, community leaders, and the Akron City Council. What a village, and what a tremendous accomplishment. The fifth and last plan is influence and leadership. Leading by example, the students at Lippman School have continued to lead by example. What a wonderful illustration to not only the students of Akron, the Buckeye students, and students of the nation. So many movements in the history of our country have been led by young people. The North American First Peoples Walk is another example of youth of our community and nation, leading, influencing, and setting the example of how working together, rising above discouragement and compromising, can lead to success. Last Saturday, I had the privilege of passing the new vision statement for the National Council for Social Studies, a world in which all students are educated and inspired for lifelong inquiry and informed civic action. Today, for the very first time, this mission was put into practice. I'm very proud to be a part of this special event. For everyone who made this happen and participated should be proud also. Looking at the students at Lippman School, we adults can rest a little bit easier, knowing our future will be in good hands. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to this council.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Cherry, is actually, you're here visiting from Texas to celebrate First Peoples Day, correct?
Yes, I came here just for that, yes.
Thank you so much. Welcome to Akron.
Thank you. Well, I'm on my way now back to Northwest Ohio to see my mother.
Okay. On tonight, we do have 2 public hearings. So we're going to ask if there's anyone here in the audience that is wishing to speak at any of our public hearings, that you'll please stand at this time so that you can be sworn in by our law department. So if you are here to speak on retail and residential development at South Hawkins Avenue and Alden Avenue, or if you're here to talk about the solid fence within the setback of 983 Jean Avenue, we'll have you to stand so that you can be sworn in by our law department. So this is not to be confused with our public comment period. Okay. Thank you. You're welcome.
If you plan to testify at the public hearing, please stand, raise your right hand, and answer in the affirmative.
Is Mr. Tober here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth? Thank you.
Ready? Okay, for the first public hearing, legal notice. Notice hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the Council of the City of Akron on Monday, October 1st, 2018, during a regular council meeting at 7 p.m. in council chambers, 166 South High Street, upon an ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct a mixed-use residential and retail development at the northwest corner of the intersection of South Hawkins Avenue and Alden Avenue.
Mr. Antonucci?
Thank you, Madam President, members of council. Todd Tober is seeking permission to establish a mixed-use building at this location to be called the 120. The proposed L-shaped building would contain 8 stories with a footprint of 30,265 square feet. The first 2 floors would contain a mix of retail and residential units, with the upper 6 floors devoted to residential use. Exterior construction materials would consist of wood-like and brick veneer with a mix of earth tone prefabricated metal panels, a storefront glazing system, along with a flat roof. The eastern portion, which is facing South Hawkins, of the lower level will be occupied by a built-to-suit storefronts totaling 10,700 square feet of retail floor space. The southern elevation would feature 8 2-story, 2-bedroom residential units. The remaining 6 upper floors will contain 144 residential units, consisting of a mix of 7 studio, 95 1-bedroom, and 42 2-bedroom units. A 132-space paved landscaped parking area will be located northwest of the building. To the east of the entrance drive will be an access drive for 58-space parking garage. An 18-space at-grade parking garage will be sited at the northwest corner of the building, and there will be 25 angled parking spaces in front of the building along Hawkins. The 8-story building will be a modern, attractive development with the majority of the parking behind the building. Proposed mixed-use development is in close proximity to the heavily retail-oriented intersections of South Hawkins, West Exchange, and West Market Streets. Since the majority of the development is devoted to residential use, it will be harmonious with the Village Point West condominiums and Woods of Fairlawn apartments to the west, and the 8-story Charles Wesley apartment building to the northeast. The Planning Department and Traffic Engineering is investigating a design for a crosswalk. The Wallhaven area has not witnessed any new mixed-use development in quite some time, and this proposal will be harmonious with the neighborhood. Both Planning Commission and planning staff recommend approval, subject to conditions.
Thank you. Is there anyone here in the audience to speak in favor of this ordinance? Anyone in the audience to speak in favor? We're just going to ask if you approach the podium, give us your name and your address.
Home address or office address?
Office is fine.
Okay. Todd Tober, 3351 Brecksville Road in Richfield. So I'm here to speak in favor of the 120. I am a developer from Akron, and I believe that we are trying to address a need in Summit County and Akron specifically for market rate apartments. This will be my second development, and I'm just sort of going where I know, which is West Akron. I went to Akron Firestone, so I know the area pretty well. So I think there's a need for a nice new market rate housing. And so as I look through Akron in the various spaces, I know the East End is done pretty well with meeting demand. There's a big push in downtown Akron area, and that's great, but I don't see much new development in West Akron. So I found this parcel and did some investigation, and it's not been developed for quite some time because, as we all know, there's quite a bit of unsuitable soils. There's a lot of peat moss below surface. We've done extensive exploratory drillings on site for the past month and have determined what engineering is necessary to support a building of this size and scope. There's one across the street, which is Charles Wesley Tower, which is made totally of concrete, which is about 5 or 6 times heavier than this building, and it was placed on piles, and it's doing just fine. So as long as you engineer and plan accordingly, there's no real concern with the site as it is. It's never been developed in the past because when you do deep foundations like piles, it becomes too expensive to make market rate housing work in West Akron because the rents are sort of lower than what you might see in Cleveland or Detroit or Chicago, a large market for apartment rentals. So I've developed a way to bring construction costs down with modular construction. We're building off-site in a factory that brings our construction costs down and then makes the projects feasible. So I think this is a great place for the building. We put a lot of time and effort and cost into designing something that's appropriate, and we're just asking for your consideration of the conditional use variance relative to the mixed use and the parking variance.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in the audience to speak in favor? Is there anyone here in the audience to speak against this ordinance? Anyone in the audience to speak against? We'll ask that you approach the podium. And before you speak, we're just going to ask that you get sworn in by our law department.
Please raise your right hand. Do you answer in the affirmative? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Richard Curry Smith, Dr. Richard Curry Smith. I'm an ecological anthropologist, and I happen to live at Village Point West, right behind this development. And so it's kind of NIMBY, not in my backyard. I wish it wouldn't be there, because right now there's a field, and I like it the way it is, and it's quiet. And a couple of concerns. There's a natural boundary, and I talked at the zoning hearing the last time, not the one today, but the one like a month ago. And I mentioned that we have a natural boundary right now with trees, and it's been there since we've been there for about 10 years, and it's grown up to a microenvironment. There's lots of different animals there, and it's a habitat for a lot of little creatures and birds and bees, and it creates a buffer from the noise of Hawkins, and so we'd like it to stay there. And so I was given assurance, and Mr. Tobler verbally gave assurance that that boundary would stay, and that it would actually, he's going to put more trees in, and that the fence that's going to be there, that's going to be worked on a bit too. And I just want to reiterate, and again, I really want this to stay the way it is. It was originally proposed to just have a fence right there, and that was all there was going to be, and there was going to be natural boundaries on the other sections on the east and the south, but not where we were. And so I just would like that to be there. That's the most important point. That's why I'm here. I want to save those trees. I want to save that natural boundary. The second point is, though, I'm just dubious about the project to begin here. Mr. Tobler's a great guy, I'll tell you. I sent an email to him. He returned my email in like a day. This is a busy guy, gets hundreds of email. And Mike, with the planning zoning, he returns my calls immediately. I'm just totally impressed with that. I'm not used to that. He answers his phone, you know. Mike Antonucci does. Who the hell does that? Anyhow, and so I'm not saying I'm saying I really think Akron. I love the city. I think it's a great idea, but where it's located, I'm just dubious also economically that the rents are this high. I think it starts around 12 for one bedroom, $1,250, around $1,500 for 2 bedrooms, and that's a lot more than what's going on in the neighborhood right now. I know Whole Foods is there, and you think it's going to bring in, you know, these millennials and stuff. I'm just dubious that this is going to be there. That's my economics. You might know the economics better than me, but I just feel it's just not going to happen.
And so I would like development not to happen, but if it does happen, I'm also a lot of concern about the hydrology of it. I'm wondering if there's been a hydrological engineer that's looked at this, because when I drive down Hawkins, I go up and down already with the city with the sewer pipes going through. You can just, and this area is a wet area. Behind our house, it's wet. And that soil, there's a reason this hasn't been developed in a long, long time. It's never been developed because of these soils. And I think when that water's pushed down, I'm concerned that the neighbors, there were some neighbors here at the zoning commission last time, and they were concerned about their homes by the large building, by McDonald's over in that area across the street. They were concerned about water into their basements and this type of thing. And I just want to ask that question. Has a hydrological engineer signed off on this? And I have colleagues who are hydrological engineers. And I'd be dubious of this, to build this and have, because like right now in our place in Village Point, the patios are all like this. The water, the building, I agree with the footings. Having those deep footings allows for the structural integrity of the building, but around the building, the sidewalks, the porches, and it's also on the large high-rise across the street. You can see how they've got to replace these. And so I would like to, I think the city of Akron has taken a risk with all these homes around the area and this water being pushed. And what's going to happen to all that water? Where's it going to go? I think it's going to spread out and it's going to go into some basements and people are going to be unhappy, and I don't want to be unhappy. And anyhow, so what I do want to say that just my interaction with the Planning and Zoning Commission and with Mr. Tobler has just been excellent. I think these are wonderful people. I just disagree with their project. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else in the audience to speak against this ordinance? Seeing and hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilman Fusco.
I'd like to pull the committee to refer this item. Amobian. Kamer. Meal. Swirsky.
Aye.
Yes, we request time on this particular item. I know the ward council person, Mr. Neal, is going to have a community meeting this week.
Okay, time will be granted.
Okay, public notice number 2. Notice hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the council of the city of Akron on Monday, October 1st, 2018, during a regular council meeting at 7 p.m., council chambers, 166 South High Street, upon an ordinance authorizing a conditional use to retain a solid fence within the setback at 983 Jean Avenue.
Mr. Antonucci.
Madam President, members of council, Meredith Wade and Tammy Hoffman are requesting permission to retain fencing 3 feet and 1 inch from the Alice Avenue right-of-way. Conditional use approval is needed for the 11-foot and 11-inch variance of the required 15-foot setback. The traffic engineer's office conducted an inspection and noted that there were no site visibility issues due to the location of this fence. Because the solid fence is set back a few feet from the sidewalk, it does permit some visibility of the right-of-way, and both Planning Commission and Planning staff recommend approval, subject to the condition.
Thank you. Is there anyone here in the audience to speak in favor of this ordinance? Anyone here to speak in favor? Is there anyone here to speak against? Anyone here to speak against? Seeing and hearing none, we'll close our public hearing. Councilman Fusco.
Thank you, President Somerville. I'd like to pull the committee for a favorable report with suspension of the rules. Mobian. Kamer. Neal. Swirsky.
Aye.
Any objections? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Yes, thank you. The Planning Department and the Planning Commission recommended approval. I know the traffic engineer had researched the area, is okay and comfortable with it. I know the ward council person's in favor, so we recommend approval this evening.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Roll call and final passage. Fusco, Hope, Kamer, Keith, Kilby, Milkovich, Neal, Amobian, Samples, Sims, Somerville, Swirsky.
Request the committees for time on items 3 and 4.
Time will be granted on items 3 and 4.
Request the committees to file item number 5. This has already been voted on by council.
Item number 5 will be filed.
Time on 6.
Time on 6.
Request the committees to file items 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. These have all been voted on by council. These are the petitions for conditional use requests.
7 through 11 will be filed.
Time on the balance.
Time will be granted. Councilman Fusco?
I'd like to make a motion that we take item number 21 under new legislation out of order and address that now.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Okay, item number 21, offered by Mayor Horrigan and Somerville, a resolution expressing support for the Summit County Child Services Levy on the November 6, 2018 ballot and authorizing Summit County Children's Services to use the name of the council for the city of Akron for advertisements and general publicity purposes related to the levy campaign and declaring an emergency.
Okay, thank you. With us on tonight, we actually have Amy Davidson and Valerie Nash, who are here on behalf of Summit County Child Services, just to share some information with us regarding the levy.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Valerie Nash. I'm the Deputy Executive Director of Human Resources and Support Services at Summit County Children's Services. And with me, I have Amy Davidson, who is the Deputy Executive Director for our Social Services Division. We're here tonight to ask for your endorsement of a resolution in support of Issue 8 for Summit County Children's Services. This levy will be on the ballot on November 6th, Issue 8, for a renewal of our current 2.25 mil levy, along with an increase of 1 mil. Now, we understand we could have done these as two separate facets, but we felt that that would definitely compromise our ability to see voters vote for the total package. We needed to maintain the renewal portion of this levy so that taxpayers receive the best benefit from the homestead rollback tax. So we wanted to make sure that that stayed intact as a renewal and then added on the additional 1 mil for this to be an increase on top of that. We've not requested an increase in our levy for over 30 years. The current cost of the levy to an owner of a $100,000 home is $64 a year, and the increase to the levy is less than 10 cents a day, or $35 a year. So the total cost is $100 a year for that same $100,000 homeowner. Our current levy collects through 2019, and the new levy will collect 2020 through 2025. Again, I want you to know that we were very planful in identifying this 1 mil levy at this point in time because we have projected that that will create a 12-year span during which we will not have to ask for an additional increase in that time period. So we will not be back to the voters in 6 years asking for yet more money. It will then become a renewal of that total amount for us. The levy is close to 60% of our total revenue, and state funding, unfortunately, is less than 10%. We are the least funded state for child welfare in the nation. So a lot rests on our local communities to support us. And fortunately, we've had the support of Summit County for a very long time, and we really do hope to continue that. Amy and I would like to answer any questions that you have related to the cost of this, both to taxpayers as well as the efforts we've taken in-house to make sure that we are running a very fine-tuned shop amidst a pretty heavy crisis when it comes to the children of our community. And that's really where the funds are directed. We have downscaled our staffing over the past 12 years to match the reduction in revenues that we've received. Unfortunately, the last time we were on the ballot, we missed our opportunity probably there to look for an increase due to the market at that time, which now puts us in a position where we really are looking at the threat of having to do further staff cuts. Programs and services to children and families would also be cut if we were unable to pass this levy. So we'll open it up to any questions that you all have for us.
Okay, I think at this time what we'll first do is Councilwoman Mobian.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you for that presentation. I think earlier today, we talked about this resolution and the needs of the agency and talked about the fact that children have been unfortunately impacted by the opiate epidemic, and you've taken more children in the last few months, and that you haven't had an increase in a number of years. So with that, I would like to pull my committee for a favorable report and suspension of the rules.
Any objections? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Mrs. Sims? Yes. Mr. Neal? Mr. Milkovich? Yes. And myself. We're all in favor of passage with suspension of the rules.
Okay, thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So we have a motion for Mayor's Council as a whole. We have a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Roll call and final passage. Fusco, Hope, Kamer, Keith, Kilby, Milkovich, Neal, Amobian, Samples, Sims, Somerville, Swirsky.
Thank you. And thank you so much, Mrs. Nash and Mrs. Davidson, for taking time to come down. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
We will now move into our new legislation.
Second. Okay.
Actually, no. No, we won't. We actually have still some old business to take care of. Public safety, Councilman Kamer.
Committee's report is continued time, please.
Okay, so time will be granted. Now we'll move into budget and finance.
Okay. Item number 1, ordinance accepting the amounts and the rates as determined by the Budget Commission of Summit County and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the Summit County Fiscal Officer and declaring an emergency, offered by Keith.
Councilman Keith?
Thank you, Madam President. The members of the committee would like this to be placed on the consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Okay. Item number 2, offered by Keith, a resolution requesting that the Summit County Fiscal Officer make an advance payment of tax funds for the tax year 2018, payable in 2019, to the City of Akron Treasury Division and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Keith?
Thank you, Madam President. The committee would like this item to be placed on the consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 3, offered by Keith, ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in the maximum principal amount of $3,500,000 in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to retire notes for the purpose of providing funds to pay expenses associated with the settlement of health care claims, whether by reserve or otherwise, and the city's portion of the cost of maintaining its self-insurance program for employees' health care benefits and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Keith?
Thank you so much. The committee has voted on a favorable report, and we would request suspension of the rules.
Any objections? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
This will authorize the issuance and sale of a one-year note in the maximum amount of $3,500,000 to provide funds to pay the maturity of the 2017 health benefit plan.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Roll call and final passage. Fusco, Hope, Kamer, Keith, Kilby, Milkovich, Neal, Amobian, Samples, Sims, Somerville, Swirsky. Item number 4, offered by Keith. Ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $30 million in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to retire notes issued for the purpose of providing funds to pay the cost of various improvements in the city and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Keith?
Madam President, the committee would like this item to be placed on the consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 5, offered by Keith. Ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of not to exceed $498,412.45 of bonds to pay in anticipation of the collection of special assessments heretofore levied, the property owner's portion of the cost of improving certain streets in the city and declaring emergency.
Councilman Keith?
Thank you, Madam President. The committee would like this item to also be placed on the consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 5, offered by Keith. Ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in the maximum principal amount of $5,950,000 in anticipation of the issuance of bond to pay the cost of constructing, reconstructing, and otherwise improving certain streets in the city and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Keith?
Madam President, this item would also like to be referred this to the consent agenda by the committee.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 7, offered by Keith. Ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of notes in a principal amount not exceeding $13,500,000 to pay for property owner's portion in anticipation of the levy and the collection of special assessments of the cost of improving certain streets in the city between certain termini by providing street cleaning services and street lighting and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Keith?
How about the consent agenda on this one also, Madam President?
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 8, ordinance authorizing the issue, offered by Keith, ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $600,000 in anticipation of issuance of bonds to pay the cost of improving municipal parks and recreational systems in the city and declare an emergency.
Councilman Keith?
Madam President, this is another one-year note, and the committee would like this to be placed on the consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 9, ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $1 million in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to pay for the cost of improving municipal buildings and facilities in the city by constructing, reconstructing, renovating, repairing roofs, remodeling, relocating, making site and other improvements, planning and designing facilities, and acquiring and installing related equipment, all applicable, designated by the Director of Public Services, and declare an emergency.
Councilman Keith?
The committee has requested that this item also be placed on the consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 10, offered by Key. Ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $1.9 million in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to pay for the cost of acquiring and equipping motor vehicles for certain divisions in the city and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Keith?
Thank you, Madam President. The committee would like this particular item to be placed on the consent agenda also.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 11, ordinance offered by Keith, ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $550,000 in anticipation of the issuance of bond to pay the cost of certain economic development projects in the city and declare an emergency.
Councilman Keith?
Madam President, the committee would also like this item to be placed on the consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
They're stuck together. Okay, item number 12, offered by Keith. Ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in the maximum principal amount of $1,300,000 in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to pay the cost of the city's portion of the consolidated computer-aided dispatch system being purchased by Summit County in connection with the dispatch services for the city safety forces and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Keith?
Thank you, Madam President. The committee would like this to be placed on the consent agenda also.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
The final and last piece for budget and finance, offered by Keith. Ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of not to exceed $1,911,180.55 of bonds to pay in anticipation of the collection of special assessments heretofore levied for property owners' portion of the cost of improving certain streets in the city and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Keith?
Thank you, Madam President. This particular ordinance will cover certain projects that we have to fund them, and the committee would like this to be placed on the consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Okay. I'm tired. What are we, planning? Yeah. Item 14, offered by Mr. Fusco. Ordinance authorizing conditional use to install a digital billboard along I-77 at 530 Nome Avenue and declare an emergency.
Councilman Fusco?
For an advertised for public hearing on October 15th.
This item will be referred.
Item number 15, offered by Fusco. Ordinance authorizing conditional use to construct a storage building at 2822 Albrecht Avenue involving both Albrecht Avenue and Alpha Avenue and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco?
For an advertised for public hearing on October 15th.
This item will be referred.
Item number 16, offered by Fusco. Ordinance amending and supplementing Title 15 Land Usage, Chapter 153 of the Zoning Code, in Section 153.140, definitions by defining housing, and Section 153.305F, private parking for residence occupants, by revising the amount of required off-street residential parking requirements and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco?
For an advertised for public hearing on the 15th.
This item will be referred.
Okay. Item number 17, offered by Fusco and Samples. Ordinance accepting the vacation plat for a portion of Wheeler Lane north of East Market Street and authorizing the President of Council and the Clerk of Council to endorse the acceptance by Council and declare an emergency.
Councilman Fusco?
Consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item 18, offered by Keith. Okay. Offered by Keith, ordinance authorizes Director of Public Service to enter into an agreement with the Ohio Director of Transportation for the resurface of State Route 91, State Route 224, and Canton Road, PID 89113, declaring said project to be in the public interest, authorizing payment therefore, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Keith?
Thank you, Madam President. The committee would like this item to be placed on the consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Okay, item 19, offered by Samples. Ordinance authorizes Director of Public Service or his designee, after publicly advertising for bids, to enter into a contract for the purchase of sodium hypochlorite for the disinfection of the water reclamation facility and declare an emergency.
Councilman Samples?
Thank you, Madam President. The committee would like this to be put on the consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 20, offered by Kamer and Keith. Ordinance authorizing the purchasing agent without the formality of publicly advertising for bids to enter into a contract or contracts with Applied Concepts Incorporated for the purchase of 10 Stalker 2 moving radar units and declare an emergency.
Councilman Kamer?
Thank you. Committee's report is time, but I also would like to bring up there are two other sponsors that wanted their name added.
Mobian and Sims will be added to
Yes,
this
thank
when
you.
we print it up.
Thank you. Time will be granted.
Final piece offered by Swirsky. Resolution expressing support for the West Creek Conservancy Clean Ohio Green Space Grant application by the City of Akron to create Mudbrook Headwaters Conservation Area and declare an emergency.
The committee's report is favorable, and we ask for suspension of the rules.
Any objections? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended. Councilman Swirsky, do you have any further comment?
No, I think it's...
Would you please stand?
I don't have further comment.
You don't? Okay. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Roll call and final passage. Fusco, Hoke, Kamer, Keith, Kilby, Milkovich, Neal, Amovian, Sample, Sims, Somerville, Swirsky.
We will now move into the portion of our meeting that we refer to as our public comment period. If you wish to speak to council during this time, we're going to ask that you please approach the podium. Please sign in, state your full name, spell your last name, and give us your address. You will have 3 minutes to speak to this body. Speakers are reminded that this is an official meeting. Remarks should be kept respectful and germane to council business. Speakers should refrain from making any personal attacks. Anyone who breaches decorum will be ruled out of order and may be removed from council chambers.
Madam President and council members, everyone knows that a tent is a temporary solution to houselessness. But why the hurry to destroy Second Chance Village? Here is a community that the houseless have built for themselves with a lot of help from Sage Lewis and many churches, nonprofits, individual volunteers, and businesses. Many there find security, safety, fellowship, food, showers, warmth, both physical and emotional, and a chance to help out themselves and others. They have a chance for respite and reflection at Second Chance Village. They have a chance to get their lives back together after the trauma of houselessness. The residents of Second Chance Village have been accused of contributing to homelessness because houseless people have been leaving institutions such as jail and the Haven Arrest and so forth to go there. Last week at the Ward 8 meeting chaired by Marilyn Keith, I heard Keith Stahl, director of a homeless outreach team, talk about the many services they have accomplished in a continuum of care. But he doesn't see Second Chance Village as a partial temporary solution to homelessness. Last Monday, I understand, most of you around the Horseshoe voted to destroy Second Chance Village by, of all dates, Thanksgiving. The irony of the date. To me, the majority vote against Second Chance Village, postponed when the houseless of Second Chance Village and their supporters were here in force, but enacted the next week, was a profile in cowardice. I understand from the Ward 8 meeting last Wednesday that the city administration has promised to work with the residents of Second Chance Village and get them housing within a short period of time. But then I heard that it would come with a cost. The cost that the residents of Second Chance Village would be housed by cutting in line in front of all the others waiting for subsidized housing, some waiting for as long as 2 years. So now the residents of Second Chance Village are faced with a Sophie's choice in a zero-sum game. The city will get you out of your tent and into subsidized housing if you will kindly step in front of someone who has been waiting for subsidized housing, perhaps for 2 years. This doesn't sound like a solution to the titanic problem of houselessness in Akron, but merely a rearranging of the deck chairs on a sinking ship of homelessness. I believe that tiny houses are the way to go. The city of Akron has many vacant lots and vacant houses.
Mr. Beatty, your time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Beatty.
Hello, everybody. My name is Milanka Maric, and I'm working as a case manager in Coleman Professional Services. Lately, I found a big problem for my clients and in general in Akron public, for general Akron public, is about NETS transportation. NETS stands for non-emergency medical transportation. Many clients who are on Medicaid are not able to get through the point A to the point B, basically to their appointments, because now they haven't changed the rules. Department of Job and Family Services now you have to call them. I called them this morning when they start to work, 8:02. I was caller number 12. I left my number. They called me back in an hour and a half. One of my coworkers didn't want to give up. He waited for 4 hours, and eventually when he got them on the phone, he got the wrong information. Then they told me, okay, you called, you got us, now it's call on Metro to call you back so you can schedule a ride for your client. That never happened. So basically, we are facing the gap between services. People who are in need, they are not able to get to their services, to their medical appointments, dental, eye, whatever they need. Those are people with low income on Medicaid. So please, if you can do something to improve their lives. Also, our agencies are going to feel a drastic drop of revenues, and that's not our goal. Because people are not able to come to appointments, we are not able to bill Medicaid for it, and it's really not win-win for anyone. So thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Hi, my name is Kevin Fay, F-A-Y, of 504 Krause Street. I'm here against the proposed increase in excessive barking. I don't think there's been a lot of thought put into this. Most of the people this will affect are poor and can already not afford the $100 fine, let alone a $250 fine. And if they don't have that, they can lose a month of their life, their very freedom, because they annoyed somebody. I mean, what's next? I mean, are we going to start going after parents of rowdy children, people putting their music too loud? You simply cannot take away someone's freedom because they annoy you. And I really think this is wrong that we're even having this discussion. This is just common sense to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fay.
Good evening, Council. My name is Harrington Hargrove. I live at 1008 Laurel Avenue, Akron, Ohio, 44307. And I'm here addressing Section 3 of HUD, which this body, for some reason, don't want to apply by it. It's a provision by the HUD. It was created in 1968. And my concern is this. Section 3 provides economic development for low income in the neighborhood. The city of Akron, and especially in my ward, Ward 3, is Section 1 blight. They've torn down over 200 some houses or better. Section 2 is for housing. Section 3 is for the upliftment of the community. And we have gotten nothing in Ward 3 in 35 years. I've been before council before, and I have a letter here by Marsha Fudge. I would like to pass this around and let this body look at it. And it states that we are entitled to Section 3. But yet, I talked to my councilwoman, Margot. I talked to my friend, Marco. Yet, they want to separate 3 from 1 and 2. but it's all the same. And they gave, I think it was that letter, $5,700,000 for the community development. Yet Ward 3 has gotten nothing. And my thing is this, I've been denied this funding for quite some time. And so I was told that my project don't qualify. So today, I'm asking this body to give me a denial letter stating that you won't give Section 3 funding to our community. Therefore, I have another letter, if you don't mind looking at it. And my question is this, then we have the 10th Street. I've been asking to place our neighborhood on a street forever, yet and still, out of the 10 streets, nothing came up in Ward 3. Nothing. So I feel like this body is ignoring what HUD says you should do. And the only thing I can say is, it is wrong that for 35 years, and then they're asking us to wait 5 more years because you have this 10th Street, and then we don't qualify for it.
Sir, your time is up.
Yes, sir.
Sorry about that.
Thank you, Mr. Hargrove.
Can I get a copy of my letters back, or you got a copy?
My name is Steve Nome, N-O-M-E, live at 1928 6th Street, Cuyahoga Falls. I read last week that the city's going to eliminate the bike lane on Exchange Street, which has been clogging automobile traffic. Now, I don't have an opinion whether or not there should be a bike lane, but I was pleased to see that the city recognized that a bad decision had been made and they're going to take steps to remedy the problem. It gives me hope that the bad decision regarding retiree spouses' health insurance could also be remedied. 2 Saturdays ago, I attended a wellness festival at the Civic Theater. It was sponsored by Wayside Furniture. Now, last Christmas, Wayside offered free tickets to a Christmas movie at the Civic, and it's my understanding they will do the same again this December. Now, for a number of years, Wayside has had an after-Thanksgiving giving event. They have a list of local and national organizations for which they will match the amount that private individuals donate. Now, I've been able to make contributions to worthwhile organizations for at least the last 4 years and see the gift doubled by the generosity of Wayside Furniture. Now, I don't know if you've ever dealt with this, but I think council should recognize that Wayside is a very good member of the Akron area and should be recognized for their generosity. Because the city has taken away affordable health care for retiree spouses, I'm saddened that my ability to make meaningful contributions for the good of our community this Thanksgiving has been impacted, and I will be limited in the level that I can make contributions. Sadly, it'll be about a year since the city put its plan to deprive retiree spouses of affordable health insurance. 2 pending court cases, which are moving by my thought at a snail's pace, it prevents council from taking action to remedy this problem, which has had a strong negative impact on retirees with spouses under the age of 65 years old. So I know you can't do anything until the court's done, but when the court's done, whether they rule in your favor or rule in favor of not your favor, I guess, I really wish the council would review this and look at a way to make retiree spouses and insurance affordable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nome.
Good afternoon. My name is Wanda Easton. I live at 744 Moon Street, Akron, Ohio. We have a problem with a hydrant at 740 Moon Street. It's tearing up cars. I know there's been a lot of complaint about the hydrant. It sits by, this is the driveway, and the hydrant sits right there. So when you pull out the driveway, your bumper's gonna get taken, or your rear end is gonna be taken by the hydrant that sticks on the side, you're coming out the driveway. I've made several complaints about it. Now this is, 2018? It's been 2016 and nothing has been done about it. But I know they have filled out complaints down here at city. I mean, city, yeah. And they cut some trees down and cut down the wrong trees. And I think that the situation, the way things is operating, is just like the horse is coming before the cart, you know. I mean, some of it just takes common sense. But I just hope the fire hydrant getting taken care of, and any other project that I know that has started, has not completed. I've been the section of Phase 4 on Moon Street to develop like they did on Madison. So I don't know when they're gonna start getting down with the get down like they say, because it's on paper. I've gave Margot the houses that's supposed to be torn down. This is what, 2018? 2000, okay? And we did get a few houses taken down, but the project needs to be completed. And also, when they take houses down, they'll take a house down over here, they'll go way across so-and-so and tear the house down there, and the house next door need to be torn down, but they'll just tear one down and go across to the east side and tear one down. I don't get it. That's where y'all operate. But anyway, I hope these things that I've said that has been looked at or going to look at. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Eason. Anyone else wishing to speak during our public comment period? Seeing and hearing none, we'll close our public comment period and move into our committee assignments. Rules, Councilman Keith. Budget and Finance, Councilman Keith. Planning, Councilman Fusco. Public Service, Councilman Keith. Public Utilities, Councilman Samples. Public Safety, Councilman Kamer. Parks and Rec, Councilman Neal. Housing, Councilman Kilby. Health and Social Services, Councilman Amobian. Economic Development, Councilman Sims. Green Committee, Councilman Swirsky.
1 o'clock.
Is there anything else coming before council? Councilwoman Samples?
Thank you, Madam President. I didn't want to end this day without introducing our special guest that we have with us this evening. 9 months into her tenure as the new president and CEO of East Akron Neighborhood Development, and a fellow council colleague from Cleveland Heights, Cheryl Stevens. So if you could get up a little bit, tell us a little about what's going on now that you're the new CEO.
Thank you, my sister. As you noticed, there are 4 African-American women who are city council members here, so they have made me their colleague honorarily. And Margot and I are members of Class 35 of Leadership Akron. In the 9 months that I've been in a leadership role in Greater Akron, I want to thank you so much for welcoming me. The Planning and Development Director and I have become buddies. We are both nerds about planning and economic development activities, which is what you want. You want the director or executive of your largest housing and economic development organization, which he put in a document that I read before I became a staff member, planning on growing for Akron. He talked about the history of our organization and how much we've done in Akron. And so tonight I'm here to tell you that we are working on our strategic plan for the next 3 years. And the next big step for East Akron Neighborhood Development Corporation is to make affordable housing for middle-class families a priority. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Stevens. Councilman Keith?
Thank you, Madam President. I have a couple, but the first one, did Annie leave? Yes, she did. Well, Annie McFadden reminded us, and Councilman Swirsky brought it up today, but I think they're going to do a press release, but we have a bit of an audience, so you should know this, that the Ohio Water Environment Association recognized Akron once again, and the Ohio Water Environment Association awarded the City of Akron the 2018 Engineering Excellence Award and the 2018 Facility Image Award at the recent One Water Conference in Columbus. The Akron Water Reclamation Facility got the Step Feed Phase 1 project, won the Engineering Excellence Award, and the Akron Waterways Renewed, the AWR, public outreach program, that's where they take the tours and everything, was presented the OWEA's 2018 Facility Image Award for their efforts to educate the public. And I just know we walked away, the water department, with a tremendous amount of recognition. And even though it may come out in a public announcement, I thought we should publicly thank them for their hard work. They're just like a family. They're working together to make it all better. And I also wanted to say that I'm sorry that so many of my colleagues weren't able to go on the first official First People's Walk. It has been happening more than this year, but today was the First People's Day, and it just happened to coincide with our committee meetings, which Councilman Swirsky, who rarely has a piece in the Green Committee, today he has a piece in the Green Committee and wasn't able to make it. So, but I wanted you to know that it was very well attended by members of the community, and I'm thankful for everything that the council did to make that happen. And last but not least, if you can mark your calendars, on Tuesday, October the 9th, a fire promotion ceremony will take place here. It will be held at 1 o'clock, and that'll be in council chambers if you're able to make it. Thank you so much, Madam President.
Thank you. Anything else coming before council? Councilman Neal?
Thank you, Madam President. Just wanted to say that about a year ago, we had a topic come in to council that was difficult for many members, and it was dealing with changing Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day. Next week, members from the city of Akron will be off for Columbus Day. And I had to be honest, this really hit me looking at the what just happened with Bill Cosby and his being convicted of sexual misconduct. The Supreme Court case with, I believe it's Kavanaugh, and they're going back and looking at his diary and possible allegations of rape. And I asked myself, you know, what's the statute of limitations for a rapist and a murderer?
There is none.
So I asked this is not to take away from what our children, based on their level of understanding, did today. But I asked this to this body here. Our city celebrates a day of a rapist and a murderer. Just like they went back and looked at Kavanaugh's high school yearbook, in his own words in his diary, he admitted those things. We celebrated, as we rightfully should have, a part of Jewish heritage a couple weeks back. Columbus was responsible for the kickoff of the transatlantic slave trade. 2019 will mark 400 years since chattel slavery on this continent. I'm hoping that between now and this time next year, that this council will truly look at a day that this city celebrates of someone who is a rapist and a murderer. It struck me even when Mr. Cherry was speaking. He said he thought, I'm not sure if Hillary Clinton created the saying, it takes a village to raise a child. Just those little subtle, leaving those little subtle things out of history changes the whole dynamic. not even understanding the Cheyenne tribe and the children here in Akron that are able to come together. If it wasn't for the Africans in Haiti pushing back the French to where Napoleon had to make the Louisiana Purchase trade, the United States may not even be one full continent. But we left that part out of the discussion when we looking at it, changing Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day. One of the key parts in there was his act in the transatlantic slave trade. So for me, I'm hoping that this council can take a mature look at a day that we celebrate. Because again, I asked the question, what is the statute of limitations on a known rapist and murderer? Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilman Neal. Councilman Mobian?
I'd just like to bring something to the attention of the citizens. It is true that NET, the non-emergency transportation service through the county, is experiencing some challenges. I don't know if it's gone totally, but if you have Medicaid, make sure that you contact one of the 6 managed care companies. They do have transportation services, and there's a limit to how many trips they will provide. However, if you have a chronic condition, they're supposed to extend the number of rides that you can get to your medical appointments or to doctor's appointments. It's not necessarily emergency appointments, but they are medically related. So keep in mind, there are 6 managed care companies that are managing Medicaid in the state of Ohio now, and they have transportation services connected to them. And that's UHC, United Healthcare, Buckeye, is Molina, Paramount, Aetna, and CareSource. So keep in mind, if you have one of those that's covering your Medicaid, they should have transportation services available to you. We can talk after the meeting, but those services are available to the citizens who have those managed care services. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Mobian. Anything else coming before council? We have a motion to excuse Mike Freeman. Is there a second? All in favor signify by saying aye. Just a reminder, we will not be in session on next Monday because of Columbus Day. A motion for adjournment? Seeing no objections, we're adjourned.
This concludes the live broadcast of Akron City Council. Margot Somerville, President of Council, presiding.